There he is, Mr. Bonds.
I'll call this budget workshop of the Louisa County Board of Supervisors to order. Today is February the 18th, 2025. We have a couple items on the agenda today. One is the discussion fiscal year 2026 operation maintenance and capital improvement budget. We also have three outside agencies that we've invited to speak to us. We'll start the meeting off. Mrs. Colvin.
Yes, Chairman, members of the board, thank you for meeting today. In front of you, you have your updated outside agency list. It's got all the adjustments from last time that y'all gave me, and then, of course, we'll be talking with three agencies today. The Planning Commission did meet last week, let me get my days right, and they have approved or to move the capital plan up to you guys for your review and consideration. And then that is, the last thing, we also got numbers from assessment. So I have adjusted the operational budget a little bit in there for revenues. So without new construction, comparing last year's real estate to this year's, it's about an 8 point something increase. I think it's 8.1, 8.2. And then if you take into account all of it, it's about a 10% increase. So you will see on that item that I gave you for the operational, that's increased a little bit, but that's the only change other than the outside agencies from last week, and then the revenue have upped a little bit. So then whenever you're ready, our first agency is, or unless you have any questions on any of that.
Anybody have any questions for Mrs. Colvin?
So Fluvanna Housing, and is the first one I
Well, we'll
have.
start, I see the folks are here from Java, so we'll start with the folks
Okay.
here from Java. How about
Okay,
that?
that's fine.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us here today. I've got just a couple of materials, so I'll bring those up to you all. Oh, thanks. Well, thank you again for the invitation to present today and answer your questions. It's my pleasure to be here and introduce myself. I'm Judith Selzer. I'm the new CEO of the Jefferson Area Board on Aging. I started just about 5 weeks ago, and it's been a great pleasure to get to know our community, and I spent some time today at our Respite Enrichment Center and our community center down the road. And I have with me my colleague, our Chief Human Resources Officer, Christina Evans, who I think many of you know. I don't know if you have anything you want to share and say hello about.
Yep, just hello guys. I know it's I've been at one meeting, so you'll see my face more frequently. So in the coming year.
But we wanted to come by and again just say hello, introduce myself. Thank you for your years of investment in the senior community. As you know, the aging community continues to grow tremendously, and the investment that you've made in wrapping around services to ensure that they're not being isolated, that they're having community meals, that they're having the aging services, coordination, so that way where they run into issues, they have somebody to navigate and case manage and help connect them to services. I do understand in my short tenure with the organization that over the last year we did have some employee turnover and that there was some disruptions in some of the programs, and so I apologize for that. I think some of you have begun to meet our new team members that are here in Louisa, Tony and Emily, who are running our enrichment center and our community center. Those of you who've met them, I'm sure, can attest to that. They are passionate. They're very engaged in the community. Today over at the center, when I was there was about 30 folks enjoying bingo and starting to get excited, hopefully after this next snow for the spring, to go outside and garden. So really excited about that. I do have for you, of course, some data that I passed around, or Christina passed around, about our program impact last year. And on the very last page, you'll see some data about where we are this year, because we're halfway through this fiscal year. So I won't go through every slide, but if you look at the very last slide about how we're doing so far this year, this is what I had the team pull for me. And again, I can answer many questions for you, but not all of them, given that I've been here for only 5 weeks. So any questions that you have that I don't have the answers for, I promise to write down and get you answers right away about. But for this current year that we're in, we had projected to see 65 individuals, about 10,000 hours to address social isolation, and halfway through the year, that we're on track for that at about 46 different individuals. The community center meals, you can see that as well, about halfway there. Home delivered meals are for those folks, of course, who are homebound, who don't have the ability to get to our center for meals, and so we want to ensure that they have healthy meals at home. Our information and assistance line where folks can call, whether that's a caregiver or the individual themselves, saying, you know, I've got a broken floor, I need a ramp, I need home delivered meals, I'm not sure how to address this issue. Our community members can help direct them in different directions. Our aging service coordinators can even go out to their homes or their facilities. And then, of course, we do track satisfaction on all different things, and so that is moving forward as well. But again, I wanted to leave time for questions. So, you know, again, just happy to be here, so glad to meet you all, and happy to answer any questions you have about our program so far this year.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all both for being here. I'm really the supervisor that kicked up the dust about the senior center and Betty Queen Center.
Yes.
So I have met the two, is it Emily
Emily and Tony, yes.
and Tony Williams?
No.
Yeah, oh, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Tony Williams.
There's another one. He's
We
in
didn't
Menlo.
think there was but one, but there are at least two.
We got
It
two.
ain't me, though.
It's not you. It's not you.
Very nice
And
man.
Very nice, man.
Very nice man. Definitely not me.
he actually is a resident of the town of Monroe. So he lives in
Yeah.
the county. He is splitting his time between the Louisa Senior Center and the Fluvanna, from what he
Correct.
told me. Full of energy,
Yeah.
just a joy to talk to.
Isn't he? Yeah.
So that
Sounds just like
certainly-
me.
Well, no comment. But, and also Emily actually is sitting in on our meetings with the Commission on Aging. She participated greatly in that meeting in a wonderful way. She was at the Betty Queen Center when it was at its height of intergenerationality, I guess, which has really been lacking in that building for a
Yeah.
while. So I left there that Wednesday with great anticipation, starting to get very comfortable with where we are, and thank you so much for sending those two folks to the Betty Queen Center.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with them and getting to know them as well, and also for the feedback they shared with me. We're going to, from time to time, make mistakes, and our goal is to learn from them and to do a better job. So at any time that you've got questions or concerns, you can always reach out to them. You can reach out to us. While I am not a resident of this county, I just live 30 minutes away. Christina, of course, is a resident here, as as you said, you know, our other team members. So we're really excited about continuing to grow and refresh our programs here and serve the community. But we understand that last year there were some bumps, and so we're really glad we're on a better track this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank you both for coming, and you know I'm a big supporter of yours. Since being on the board for a little over a year now, the JABA board, I've gotten to know a little bit more of the nuances and how the program runs and what's going on in other counties, and I just have great admiration. I know we went through some bumps and a few hiccups
Yeah.
last year, as I addressed with you, and I spoke to Christian about too, but I feel strong that you guys are on the right track.
Thank you.
I know people who are in your programs, in that Wednesday program, who love the other Tony Williams, and it's a lifeline. I know one lady who's in the program who wasn't really doing much at home, and she has been looking forward to it, reading all the events, activities, what she's going to do. It's something that her daughter said it gets her so excited
Yeah.
for her to go to, that there's a place and a purpose for her, and a friend of hers goes to, so the two of them are there. And it's just the joy hearing it from the daughter, who's a coworker of mine, and I have goosebumps that her mom has kind of a passion and a mission now and gets very excited about the program. So thank you guys for coming, and thank you for doing what you're doing for our community members and our seniors.
It really is our honor, and we appreciate that feedback as well. And my understanding is, even in just the few weeks that our new team members have been on the ground, the Parks and Recreation manager there has even enrolled his mom in the community
And that's
center,
one of the
which I'm
ladies
like,
I am talking
wow!
about. Yes.
So to me, that's like a huge sign that he's seeing success, and we're moving in a great direction. That he's even like, this is a great place for my mom to be. And with Tony's, for folks who know, he's got a musical theater background, and so he's got them line dancing, and they've got plans to take field trips to see shows. And I mean, it's like, man, I want to go there all day. I had so much fun when I was there this afternoon.
Even something as small as how he's doing the logistical seating and
Exactly.
trying to combine everyone
Yeah.
and making that decision has made a world of difference with
Yeah.
the way people are communicating within the program, I understand. So-
Exactly, and I saw that today. They're really being very thoughtful and intentional about trying to break down boundaries and really just create true community in all of the senses of the word. But again, it wouldn't happen without your financial investment, and we know that there are so many important needs of the community, and the fact that you all have for so many years invested in the aging community and those living with disabilities doesn't go unnoticed. It is deeply appreciated by your constituents and, of course, by us who have the responsibility and honor of trying to serve the community. So thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? I will just point out that, and the board will vote on this later, but the Finance Committee had recommended that we fully fund your request. I'm a member of the Finance Committee. The other Mr. Williams here is a member of the Finance Committee. So
Grumpy.
thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions for him? Thank you all very much. Appreciate
We
it.
appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next is the Louisa Historical Society. Mr. Fleming, Caitlin, I don't know, both of you?
I'm nuts and bolts here.
Good evening, Mr. Adams and the rest of the Board of Supervisors members. My name is Vernon Fleming. I'm the newly elected president of the Lewis County Historical Society. Caitlin, as you know, is executive director. We're here to talk about our budget. First of all, I guess 2 years ago we were awarded $42,500. Last year that was reduced to $5,000. Reason being, we took it as being punitive because of comments made by a person who was operating independently of our organization, but made comments regarding the data center and the location of that. But again, that was a grant-funded person. The cut did not affect that person's salary. It hurt the community more than anything else. So we're seeking to get that funding restored, not the full amount, but at least $39,000 is what we're asking for. We think that's reasonable. Caitlin can explain a little bit about how that money would be spent.
Yeah, you all have received your budget financial requests. So this is a recap for you all. But the way we broke this down was a little bit differently than we have in the past. First and foremost, we are asking for $13,260, and that would offset a portion of the services we provide as a visitor information center for the county, a portion of our staff time to man that front desk, get all of the brochures, et cetera, do all the kind of community liaison work with other visitor centers in the state. And then an additional part of that would be also coverage to help with cleaning for that portion of the museum, kind of updating brochures, maps, those sorts of things. We've also asked for additional funding to help support our annual Heritage Day, which brings in visitors from outside of the county. That is hosted in April, and some of you have been there before, which is a good thing. But this would offset some of those costs for outside speakers, promotion of the event throughout the community. And then the two other additional requests, one would be $15,840, and that is based on the production of additional tours for our tourism app. We had applied for tourism funding this past cycle, and so this would be an additional additions to the tourism offerings that we can provide for the community, as well as some of the marketing materials and pamphlets and maps and those sorts of things. And then the last portion of the request is $7,000 to help support maintenance of the Trevilian Schoolhouse and the Mickey House. The Trevilian Schoolhouse is the 19th century one-room schoolhouse that's at the museum. And then the 18th century Mickey House, which was moved from historic Green Springs to the museum about a little over 10 years ago. So that would help support kind of the maintenance and preservation of those, because as you all I'm sure are aware, old buildings take additional love and support. So to keep those open and in their best presentation to school groups, kids, visitors to the museum, we were asking for some help to get those kind of back up in their best shape.
So the question is, why fund the museum Center or Historic Society altogether. First of all, we discover, preserve, and present history of the county. That discovery, several years ago, we did a If These Stones Could Speak. Team went out and looked at grave sites, identified those grave sites, and tried to develop history on those graves to make sure they're preserved. If you go down to Shady Grove Roosevelt School in the Gum Spring area, that building's been restored with support of the Historical Society. If you look at the Laurel Hill community, which got us into trouble, but the objective there was to make sure that there was no grave sites that was going to be disturbed without being aware of it. So we were trying to do our due diligence for the good of the county and make sure that there was not going to be any issues long term. The Freedom of Choice Project, which you all supported and funded a couple of years ago, was again presenting history of part of our community. It had been kind of neglected in the past. We offer hearth cooking, we offer herb gardening, loom weaving. These are things that our ancestors did in the past that would be lost if it wasn't for the Historical Society presenting classes, teaching folks how that was done. We recently had an old homes tour to showcase the old homes in Louisa County, which is part of our treasure that brought in about 149 people. About 40% of those were from outside of the county. So these are dollars that's coming to the county due to the efforts of this organization. We present genealogy classes to folks trying to find the history, and oftentimes they come back to the county to do that work, spending money in our restaurants, buying gasoline, and sometimes staying overnight, giving Bree some money at Fox's Place, which again, tax dollars goes back to the county. But what we do is provide a resource for genealogists, for researchers, but the Tourism Center is one that we see as key for generating revenue for the county. We have roughly 2,500 visitors last year. That was up 4% from the year before. We've had folks reach out nationally and internationally trying to do research within where they have roots in Louisa County. And oftentimes they'll call in, sometimes they'll drive in. We just had a couple come down a few weeks ago because they were former teachers in the county, but again, spent time in the museum center, plan to come back, they're spending money here in the county. But we see that Historical Society is a valuable resource for this county. We're serving the community, we're serving folks who have roots in this county. We're presenting an opportunity for folks to come back to showcase the history of Louisa County. That's what we do, and it's really supported by volunteers. We've got a large staff of volunteers. Caitlin and about 10% of another person is all paid staff. So we're not highly funded. It's not going to revenue. It's going to providing services. So we're asking that the Board of Supervisors show that you value this organization by funding our requests. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I do. Caitlin, what is the total Louisa Historical Society budget?
The total budget is about 120,000 this year. It's 123, I believe, is the total number, or that might have been last year, but it's 120,000.
So, based upon what we funded last year and $120,000, how did you make up for that? That's a significant difference. I'm curious as to how y'all paddled under the water.
So the Old Homes Tour was a big deal in making up for that. I think we brought in about $7,000 from the Old Homes Tour last year, which we're doing again this year and hoping to, increase that as a base. It's something that we had kind of tested the water on last year. It was the first time we had done it in, 10 years maybe. And so we didn't really know what to expect, but that's kind of been added to the rotation. We have had additional donations from other community members. Grant funds have been kind of the other way, and squeaking by has been the biggest way that we've done it. Cutting some things that we don't necessarily need every day, but that would make our jobs easier if we had it. Like a subscription to a insert genealogy website here, those sorts of things. We've been creative, and we've been creative in the way that we've gotten additional volunteers and summer interns to help do
I would
work.
add, because of the cut, some folks made a one-time special donation to cover the gap that may not be there long-term, but it was based on our cut once we communicated that the budget had been cut by 88% from the county.
Yeah, the other thing, Randy just said this because he's our treasurer. The other thing that we have to note is that we operate on a calendar year, so we are only seeing, this calendar year has only seen a half a decrease. So we still had our 2 quarters of the prior year funding in this calendar year. So we've seen a decrease, but we haven't seen the full, down to $5,000 this year. That will be, I guess, will be predicted upon what happens with the fiscal year next year.
Okay, so you're requesting 39.6. How do you propose to go from 39.6 to 123? Okay.
You mean as far as our budget goes? Yeah, so we have a pretty stable base as far as membership goes and donations. And I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but we bring in the goal is about $40,000 a year in our annual fund. We bring in close to $12,000 in membership every year. That's about 150 members, active dues-paying members, and then we have additional members who are lifetime members who contribute to the annual fund,
We
generally
apply for
speaking.
grants, that's not guaranteed, but we sometimes get them, sometimes we don't.
Yeah, and so that's kind of, those are our bases, membership. We have a business sponsorship program that has fluctuated. We're changing the way we're doing that this coming year with kind of more personal one-on-one business coordination rather than mass mailers, because I throw those out too. But, trying to kind of get more one-on-one communication with some of the businesses to increase that. That's also going to go into our Old Homes Tour to help offset some of the costs associated with that. We'll have a separate business sponsorship advertising program for the Old Homes Tour in the fall. And then we have merchandise. That's something that we're expanding. This past week, we were approved to be a wholesaler for Virginia's for Lovers through the Virginia Tourism Commission. So that's kind of another thing that we're adding to the mix. The real answer is we try to diversify. We historically, the museum, kind of sent out our membership and annual fund all at once, and that's how they raised money. In the last 2 years, we have done that differently. I've now been here, this is year 3 for me. Well, we're into year 4. But, how do we kind of diversify our audience so that we're getting people in the door purchasing a book, also people who are our constant base of, bigger ticket item donors for events, business sponsorship, those sorts of things. So that's the answer.
Yes, we.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm going to ask Wanda a question, and I don't know the answer, so you may not know the answer now, and that's certainly acceptable. We have some transient occupancy tax money that we can only use on certain things for like visitors and stuff like that. Would the visitor center stuff here be available for that? I know we gave them a grant already for some stuff. Would the visitor information center manning that be part of something that we would qualify for that if we had it?
I can answer it. No,
I
I
was gonna
can
say, I
answer
probably
part
have
of
to
that
look that
question.
up.
You have part of that?
I know we have a guideline that we set with the program.
When the grant request came to the Tourism Advisory Committee, which Mr. McCutter and I serve as liaisons, part of the grant funding requested was for a position. The Tourism Advisory Committee, which I don't have a vote, but I agreed with this. There was another organization that asked it for a position too. Felt that using tax dollars to fund on a grant basis a position was not a wise use of the money, because that would run out within a year.
So here you'd be funding on an operating portion basis.
Well, what we did fund, which I have in front of me,
Okay, I have it.
$19,000. 2 meetings ago, we funded $19,000 to Historical Society, $6,000 for visitor signage signing for the Sargent Museum, $12,000 for integration of maps and tours into the Louisa's tourism app, and $1,000 for an all-weather brochure map kiosk contingent on further evaluation of compatibility with the existing infrastructure. So on the, let me see, January 6th meeting, we did fund, based on the Tourism Advisory Committee, $19,000, which was, again, a one-time grant, but funding.
My question is, and I'm trying to understand because I think it's pretty new. This transient occupancy tax, it falls in the bucket, and we have to take a certain portion of that every year?
What it is with that those monies, now the committee has guidelines that they've adopted, but it has to be focused on tourism and bringing people into the county and focused on that. And I believe that like Mr. Adams was saying, they're not looking for things that would be an ongoing expense, but a one-time expense. So it wouldn't be something that had to be funded because we don't know, it's a competitive kind of thing. People submit applications. So if you did a position, you may have money one year and maybe not the next for it, where something that's a one-time expense or a program. They've been aiming it towards programming and events,
And when the board increased the TOT tax, it should generate, based on projections, about $600,000 annually that would be used specifically for tourism-related activities, which in the last meeting, we did the fair, the ag fair, and we did the historical society.
and part
some
of that's for county tourism as well.
Yeah, we are funding
So
tourism,
part
and
of-
some of it's for the signage.
We get $600,000 a year that has to be earmarked for spending back on tourism.
Yes.
Have we spent all of that this year?
No.
Do we know what we have left in that pot?
I can email you what we have left. I do not know off the top
Okay,
of my
that's fair.
head. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fair. Okay.
And we haven't, like, 600,000 was our budget for this year. We
Well,
haven't
and
necessarily
so-
received all 600,000 yet, but yes.
So my question is, we have, and I guess it's a broader question for the board, we have a facility here that mans, I don't know, do you man just 10 hours a week, or do you?
No, we're 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, yeah.
So you're
And on
40 hours a
Saturdays,
week
yeah.
during the week, but you're asking for 10 hours of support. Do we have any other thing like this in the county that is a visitor center that is open? I'm asking, I really don't know the answer to the question. I can't think of anything, nothing comes to mind.
I'll be
but
honest,
but I'm not
there's a
ruling
whole
out that there-
committee on that. I'm not on that committee,
Yeah.
but we have, with part of the establishment of that TOT tax was it has to be, a committee has to be formed of different parts of, like people in the hotel business, people, just all the businesses that would be around to promote. It could be,
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like this. Yes, I think a lot of these things fall, but there are guidelines, and then they would apply, which I think y'all did.
Yeah.
And then that committee makes that vote on it,
Does it always
recommends it
have
to
to
the
be a
board.
grant? Does that always have to go through the committee?
Supposed to. Other
Supposed-
than the operating expense for the county, which they also voted on, like our tourism runs
So-
through that as well.
If we wanted to, I'm asking,
Yeah.
if we wanted to
If
add
you-
$13,260, we would send it to the committee for consideration for an
And
operating?
y'all ultimately have the final say as the board, but
they-
yes, it should funnel through them.
It should come through them.
It should, yes.
Okay.
But it is something that, yes, we could.
Yeah,
Just to give you further clarity, what we allocated in the January 6th meeting was a total of $45,699, which represents 27.2% of the $168,756 in a tourism partnership grants budget, leaving $122,057 available for future initiatives. Some of those things that are under consideration is the gateway signage. And I think there's a second round of grant funding. Some things were denied, nothing was funded to the full amount, Mr. McCotter, if I remember right. I think the Ag Fair asked for, I don't know, a lot.
Yeah.
A couple $100,000.
Yeah, and I would just say, this is all new, and we kind of were unsure. Obviously, the funding that we just went through that grant application process was this past year's funding. So we applied through that program, but we were unsure of how next year looks, how that was going to work, if it was all going to be funneled through, so we put everything here and we'll figure it out.
So, Ms. Colvin, and I apologize for these
No,
pointed
I-
questions, but I just don't understand.
Sorry, I may have to get some of the
Yeah,
details
and that's
off my
fine.
office.
We have to go make some numbers. So I hear Mr. Adams saying in one vein that there's $600,000 a year, but then I hear the number, there's only $145,000. So that leaves $450,000 unaccounted for.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that's
so-
what I'm trying to understand, what
Okay,
the
so of
disparity
that
is there.
fund, and the board approved it.
Mm-hmm.
The committee said, hey, and I don't have the exact numbers, but it was like a third for county operating, a third for programming, and like a third for events. I'm just going off the top of my head. I'll have to pull that resolution to get you exact numbers.
Okay.
But it was percentages that would be spent. And like a
so
third would be
roughly-
for
And so the third that has to run through the committee,
the committee, yeah, so.
or the committee approved the other two-thirds as well?
The events and the programming run through the committee. The
Okay.
board approved that a certain
Well, this is not,
percentage.
so this is not events or programming?
That is programming and events.
On the,
yeah.
on
That-
the
that's
on
what
staffing and
these
visitor information
grants
center?
are, yeah.
Would be programming?
That's what we applied, the funding that we just applied through was through that, but,
applied for the staffing.
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. I'm
No,
trying to
you're
catch up here.
fine.
I'm a little slow.
Well, and part of it's
I'm like the
marketing
guy
that
from,
the
the
county
Tony from
does.
Java who's really fast and pleasant. I'm different.
Well,
I'm
and
slow and unpleasant.
I will add that part of the county's portions to advertise, to promote the Historic Society, to promote all the art center and the housing and all the other great things that are happening in the county. And then there's also salaries for the county that, for people like our tourism department would be funded there. But then we did set aside a piece that they do apply for, that, yeah. But the exact numbers, I can get to you.
No, I think I'm good enough.
Okay.
I understand roughly.
Mr. McConnell.
Yeah, I have another question. Caitlin, the terminology used was visitor center for what y'all are doing over there.
It's true.
Is that county-wide?
Yes.
Yes, statewide too. We include brochures for the regional visitor center services. So Fredericksburg.
Like you can catch a brochure from Monticello at your
Yeah.
place, I guess.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Or the battlefield in
Yeah,
Fredericksburg.
yeah.
Okay.
We have them differentiated both by what they are. So we have a historical section. So are you coming to do history tours? Here's all the information. But we also have local businesses, local hotels, maps of the county, all of those other sorts of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. If you're serving as a visitor center, do you get any funding from the state for serving as a visitor center? There's no with Virginia VTC, nothing like that at all?
You can apply for separate grants. There are, there's a grant agency through VTC. And my understanding is that they will help with getting additional signage. We've applied to be what is called a certified tourism information center. And my understanding is that when that happens, we will have to kind of go through the process of getting the signage, et cetera, all up and running on our own behalf.
So we don't have a tourism or visitor center at Zion's.
No, it moved.
We don't have.
It moved to us.
It's them. It moved. It was.
Yeah.
That certainly seems like maybe a better gateway than coming all the way into Louisa. But hey, if you're in Louisa, you're gonna have to maybe hit Main Street or something else, or maybe at Lake Anna. I don't know. But right now we have you.
Yeah.
You are our visitor center.
That is us.
To me, it seems like we got a pretty good value for $5,000 last year for a visitor center.
Yeah.
So
My husband would agree.
I don't think we're going to make a decision on this today, but we might. But I certainly would be favorable to consider some more funding if you're going to serve as a visitor center, because that's a large function.
Yeah.
On top of everything else that you're doing
Yeah.
with the Historical Society.
Yes, ma'am.
I absolutely agree with him, and I do support additional funding. I always have, because I know the umbrella that you guys are doing for this community and what you are doing. Did you take on this year, I think at a meeting we were speaking about the Central Virginian? You're holding all their archives now, so all of the historical records in print are being held there, and you guys are managing that.
Yeah, so we, and we'll open the Central Virginian
From
room.
the newspaper?
Yeah,
The newspaper that is in Tennessee?
yeah.
That runs the local news? Oh, that one, okay.
That one.
So all of the papers going back to the 1880s are
1880s.
in the museum. We're in the process of digitizing those, and that we will open that exhibit at the end of March to the public with kind of more interactive elements
huge
besides it
task.
just being there to look at.
That's a huge task,
Oh, yeah.
digitizing from 18.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get there
Or it
anytime
was in
soon, but
No.
but the Library of Virginia has a portion of them available online, but the goal is to basically start at the beginning and work our way through. Yeah.
But the
And
actual
that's,
papers are there, and
Yeah.
we need to fund proper storage and handling of that. Which we're getting some donations, but again, that's another area of funding that we need to try to raise money for.
I know that this is not lost on all of you. You all have been involved, have looked at, have seen the growth that's happened at the Historical Society of late. I do a lot with a very little.
You do.
Both in
She's gonna pay very much too,
finances. My husband would also agree. Both in amount of finances, but time. I mean, I'm going to leave here, run home, and I've got a 6:30 virtual presentation on genealogy with the Johnson family that will run for an hour, and I've got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. Like, I do a lot, and
The Johnson family live here?
there are many Johnsons that live
Oh,
here.
the people you're having the virtual thing with, do they live
No,
here?
it's a virtual presentation for anyone who is interested in figuring out how to do genealogy using a Johnson family as a case study.
Is there a cost for that, for people to participate?
Nope, it's free and open to the public. And we had one 2 weeks ago, or no, last week. The snow is messing with my brain. Last week we had Dr. Shelley Murphy, who is the genealogy researcher at UVA's Descendants organization. She's going through all UVA's records, looking at all the, what the papers actually say and seeing how she can connect them back. That again, it was a free program for us. We had 40 people sign online to attend a Tuesday night workshop. So they're people from the community. They're people who have family that has dispersed into other places in the U.S. So we try to do things free and accessible to the public as best we can. But we also have to keep the lights on.
You do. You absolutely do. And I want to join one of those genealogy classes.
Friday.
Okay.
Friday we'll have an in-person one.
So I have a couple of questions. And I think I heard Mr. McCotter actually asked one that I was going to ask, what your total budget is. How did didn't you do a I know you did a fundraising campaign last year because I gave you money and I got the letter,
Yeah.
which kind of
We need some more money.
crucified
Can
the
you do more?
Board of Supervisors in your letter. But how much did you raise from that fundraiser?
We did not raise as much as we would have liked to raise, but we raised about $4,500.
Okay. And so you raised $4,500 from that and $7,000 from, so. So the question I have, and I appreciate this information, I think Mr. Fleming gave it out. I
Yeah.
wasn't here. So you have here fiscal year 2024, you received $42,500. And I remember right before that, I had a meeting with you, and I had a meeting with Breeze, and I had a meeting with Mr. Kersey at the Arts Center, or excuse me, at the Historical Society. And we talked about increasing the amount, because I think your original ask was $60,000, and we increased you $35,000 because your historical funding level was $7,500. So your list here that your fiscal year 2024 was 42.5. Your fiscal year 2025 was 5,000, $37,000 reduction, an 88% reduction. And then your request here is for 39,000. And I recall mentioning to you that I could support an increase. I supported the $35,000 increase. But I also remember saying that part of my issue was, and in your fundraising letter, which I kept at home for this meeting, that the cut that the board gave you, because the county funding represents 30% of your total budget. And which number one I think is a problem. But according to the numbers you just gave us now, the $39,000 that you're requesting out of your $120,000 budget, this year total budget, is at 32% of your total budget. So it's going up, not down. The percentage of county funding that you're asking for of your total budget is going in the wrong direction, not the other direction. But the other thing I wanted to point out, if you look, what you left off of this piece of paper, if you look at the fiscal year 23 funding, which was $7,500, in the fiscal year '24, which was 42.5, that was a 566% increase in funding. And when we had that conversation about increase in funding, I specifically remember talking about that will help you get over the hump to start fundraising. Same conversation that we had 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago with the Arts Center. Matter of fact, Breeze, if you remember, I kept pointing out the window of the museum to the Arts Center and said, that's a really great example over there for you. And again, I'm not trying to be adversarial here, but I'm trying to understand how an organization can base 32% of its annual budget on county funding that's not guaranteed year after year. I don't know that there was anything punitive last year at all. I'm not going to agree with that statement at all, especially when you got a 566% increase. But what I do know, since January the 6th, that this board has tended, well, first of all, we've funded you to, I want to get the number right because we're on record, $19,000 in a grant, which there's no guarantee that grant will be there next year. There's no guarantee for anything. Just like year over year, outside agency funding, there's no guarantee. Tentatively, the board has looked at a $10,000, which is a 100% increase over what you got last year. So that's $29,000 that you're being funded. Am I right?
Yes, but the 19,000 is from last fiscal year, which we were not funded. So that would be in addition to the 5,000 that we were giving this last fiscal year. Am I right?
It's for fiscal year '25.
Yeah.
It goes through June 30.
Yeah.
If I could
And
just-
this is for next year. So this would be the fiscal operation for next year.
Have we already cut that check for $19,000?
Not yet. Oh,
That's-
they're
and
working
that-
on MOUs.
Yeah, so we
it'll
just
be
had the
coming.
MOU conversation on Friday about that, and my understanding is that that will be doled out, that is project-specific, and we will have to submit invoices for our signs. We will front the cost for the signs will then be reimbursed to us up to.
So then
a
this
certain-
number's not right then. So the fiscal year '25 award where it says $5,000 should actually say $25,000. And it wouldn't be an 88% reduction since it's going to go back against next year's fiscal year. Is that right?
Possibly. This is where the tourism grant process comes into play, because I think that is, yet I have no idea how that's going to play out next year. I don't know how the tourism grant cycle works. I don't know whether we're applying again for other operational, things through the tourism fiscal 2026 year or not. But this is our county request packet information.
Mr. Barnes?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm not the kick dirt guy or the other Tony Williams.
You're not the other Tony Williams?
I'm not the other Tony Williams. I'm certainly, I ain't gonna say him be told in the dust. I do remember when we had a visitor center design Crossroad at the Best Western Hotel, and we got a lot of feedback from that. But I don't know if you all, I got this app on my phone, Visit Louisa. And when I go through it, you guys got an excellent mobile app on this.
Yeah.
I can get behind giving you more money through that TOT. We got to find a way. It got to be some kind of way we can give them some more money with that TOT, because that's based off of people staying here in the county. And history is something big. I'm a 61-year-old baby, and I'm on Ancestry DNA trying to find out who I am, Tony. I don't know who the hell I am. And but I certainly can support coming from that pool of money. And Mr. Chairman, I don't know how it's set up, but like I told my friend, we the board of supervisors, we can do the hell we want to do. So, but we need to look at that, because I will support giving you some additional funding.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes.
Yeah.
Just to clarify on the fiscal year numbers, that's for the county budget, what we
Yeah.
request, what we receive, not Historical Society fiscal year. This is what
Right.
was awarded from the county.
And I apologize using those big words around here, TOT, because the general public
Transit occupancy.
don't understand what that is.
Yeah.
And like I said, it is a transit occupancy tax, so, but I would support that.
Mr. Chairman, just a real quick comment. I really appreciate, and I think I've shared that with y'all before, what y'all have done and continue to do. I certainly would like to see you be able to wean more away from county money, and I'm sure nobody'd be any happier about that than y'all would.
Yeah.
Instead of having to stand up here and ask. So, but where the Historical Society has come to today is leaps and bounds above. I mean, it struggled for years. And I'm not saying you're not still struggling, but as a historical society, I don't think you are struggling. It's financially. And, you know, I hope that we're able to find some additional money for y'all because y'all deserve it. You do a great thing, great service, not just for the people of Louisa County, but people who are ancestors of people in Louisa and just people who are interested in Louisa. So I thank y'all for that.
Well, the last thing that I would say is the same thing I told you 2 years ago. Figure out a way to reduce your reliance on county funding, because there's never any outside agency should never expect the same level or an additional level or a 566% increase year over year over year. And, you know, there is a block of money that's available that, again, it's grant money, but it's coming from people who are coming to this county. But I do have a hard time. And I write you a check. My wife and I write you a personal check every year. I get a nice note from you every year.
Did you bring a checkbook?
I did not bring my checkbook today. I left Tony Williams a message to bring his, but it was the other Tony Williams, so he didn't show up. And I'll write you a check this year. And the board will obviously revisit this, but what I would say to you, any outside entity that has 30 or 32% of its total budget relying on, I mean, I can't support that. I mean, I just can't support that high percentage. And I do think I think you do a great job. I see you at every fair, every festival, everything we go to, in period dress and everything else, and showing people these things. And I think you do good work. I'm a history major. I appreciate that sort of thing. But I'll repeat what I said to you all privately 2 years ago. I'll help you over the hump, but become more independent on your own. And I think you have a great story to tell. And I think if you tell that story, and I'm sure the board will find some additional funding, I think that we should probably look at, and I'm willing to come over and have a meeting with you later this week. Well, maybe not tomorrow, it might snow. To look at how you can tap into some of this TOT money that we have, because it does lend itself to what you do. But money directly out of the general fund at 32% just gives me pause.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. I think when we approach this year, it's a little different because we went through the process of applying for the TOD grant funding, and that was a learning curve to begin with because it was unclear exactly how that was going to happen and what that whole process would look like. And we're still figuring out, right? We just had the conversation with Chris and Cindy about the MOU on Friday. So we're trying to figure that out as it goes, and I think we don't know how that integrates into the fiscal year 2026. I have no idea how that process works. So we put this in because in the event that it's all coming out of this process, we wanted you to have that information. And if it's not, and we need to defer a portion of this to the next round of TOD funding requests, then we will do that too. So.
Well, I wouldn't defer it. I'd take the check. We've already approved the money.
No. I mean for next year. Yeah, 2026.
Yeah, I got you. Anybody else have any other questions? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Kim, there you are. I knew you were here. The Fluvanna Louisa Housing Foundation. I'm not going to hold you to 6 minutes because we can come back into closed session if we need to.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks so much for having me here again this evening. Good to see you all. I will try to be quick, though, to keep you guys rolling along, but please ask questions if you have them. A reminder, we have 5 staff. We recently added Amy Schick, who is a Louisa County resident, as our accounts payable manager. She took over for Lindell Chavez, who's there for 7 years. And Annabelle Anderson's out on maternity leave for just a few weeks. She just had a baby, so we're really excited for her. With me today, we have several of our board members and volunteers. Jeff Barton is now our board chair for the Fluvanna Louisa Housing Foundation. You may know that he runs a building company of his own, so has also been involved with Habitat for Humanity. Ron Bricker, Joe Griffith, Dennis and Judy Bellamini are all here with us, part of our grant writing staff, and Hammer and Nails volunteers as well. Let me forward to that. This is our list of volunteers. So we have greatly expanded with kind of taking on the people who used to be a part of the Louisa Habitat group. They found, I think, that they were able to broaden their horizons working with Fluvanna Louisa Housing Foundation and able to contribute more significantly to the county and to the residents here. We have added, when I came on, we had no volunteers really. So we have really built this out significantly where we have a lot of people engaged in the community with our organization. So it's something we're hoping to flesh out even more in the future and get more engagement and help bring our costs down. These are significantly Louisa County residents, which is fantastic. People who really want to be engaged.
Is that Tim Hodge? Is that the supervisor
Yes.
from Fluvanna?
Yes,
Okay.
I just added him on today, actually, to this list because he was over at our offices working on our website. So that's another way we're able to save some costs, is to get our board members have been very engaged in helping us to save costs.
He's a
So
good guy.
He's a terrific guy.
He's a good guy.
He is fantastic, yeah. So he has joined our board as well, along with Rachel from Louisa County. So we have a voting member on both boards of supervisors from each county. Just a reminder, 5 programs. So we have very robust programming: home repairs, rental properties, financial education to include first-time home buyers, construction, and ramps.
Aren't y'all still doing the voucher program too?
No. We don't? No, we gave that up a couple years ago.
Who's doing that?
Sherry Nicholson.
Well, she's doing it for herself.
No, she retired.
No, who's doing it now?
We actually gave up our voucher program.
It's a mess.
The vouchers were disseminated. Excuse me a second. We went through an analysis when Sherry retired. And we spoke to Virginia Housing about it. It's a difficult to enforce program. It's been highly abused by the residents. Virginia Housing wasn't enforcing their own standards. So people were staying on it. I asked them for their success rate, people graduating off the program. They said, what? So I said, well, how about some statistics on how long people have been on it? So I can pull those up for you. 1 to 5 years was the lowest percentage. 5 to 10 years was a little larger. 10 to 20 years was the largest percentage of people. So there's
Because
no
they never gave up the
incentive.
vouchers because it was an entitlement program.
Right.
Yes.
So yes, they never gave up their
It was
vouchers.
just to let's help you maintain where you are.
People would specifically quit their jobs once they reached a certain threshold. So it was highly abused. They'd have additional people living in the unit that weren't supposed to be there and weren't counting their income. But Virginia Housing refused to kick them off the program, even though they were violating
No
it.
problem.
So we decided that's not really the mission we want to continue. And it didn't make a difference if we were supporting it and Sherry was retiring anyway. So those vouchers were disseminated to other organizations.
Good.
Yeah. But good question, yeah, because that's sort of a part of the history that goes into it. I do want to address our return on investments real quick. We have really diversified in the past couple of years. We have a number of private grants that we get. I didn't want to go through all of them, but they're between $5,000 and $10,000 usually, $25,000 sometimes, as is the case with this Perry Foundation. We got $300,000 well and septic program. $220,000 has been awarded from TJPDC towards our project for construction. $283,000 in repairs last year, which are divided between HPG, in-kind donations, volunteer labor, and other grant sources. We service almost $1.8 million in loans that we hold in-house. We are building the $4.5 million development on Resource Lane. And, that doesn't include, so this doesn't include the Ferncliff funds. We got about $15,000 from Virginia Housing. There's sort of there's a number of different programs we're accessing for that. We do anticipate, just to insert in there, once we get those units up and running and rented, that I would foresee a decrease in our county ask at that point. So we are going through a bit of an uptick. I wanted to demonstrate over the past couple of years when I came on board during COVID that there was severe needs that were not being addressed and that we could sustain it for a period of time.
Can I pause you for a second? Because that's
Sure.
one of my questions.
Sure.
So you anticipate an uptick until you get it done, and then you anticipate it to go off. What do you anticipate to go away?
I would think that, so we are able to utilize rental income significantly to self-sustain.
So you're going to take the rental income from that, but do you have a $4.5 million block grant, or do you have a
No,
$4.5 million loan? What do you have there?
Let me show you. There's a couple of different
Doubt
things we're
there's enough
doing.
time to finish this
There's about
conversation today.
there's about $1.5 million has already been identified that's going into this project. Virginia Housing Workforce, the governor just announced, we anticipate we will able to get $1.26 million towards this project for the 9 two-bedroom units for workforce housing. DHCD, affordable and special needs housing, will be $1 million. There's also another in Virginia Housing, Virginia Home ARP funds. So there are a number of different grant funds.
What's the 120% AMI?
I'm sorry?
Bottom line, 120% AMI. What's AMI?
We can go up to 120% AMI.
What is AMI?
Area median income. So right now it's
Okay.
$93,000 for family of 4.
So these,
How much is it?
About $93,400, I believe, for Louisa.
that's the median income?
That's gone up.
So you can be 120% of the area median income that people can rent these units?
So, yes, to access this Virginia Housing Workforce grant
So,
funds.
so they can't make more than that to
Correct.
be able to rent it?
Right.
That's not
right.
your target market?
No.
Okay, I just want
No.
to be clear. Thank you.
Yes, no, up to 120%.
So are you expecting these units to come in at $140,000 apiece?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes, yeah. That's after the infrastructure. Of course, we have significant amount of infrastructure. to
So
put
you
in.
don't expect the units to come in at 100, you expect the variable cost of the unit itself to be
Yes.
$140,000, not
Correct.
including the fixed cost of the development?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Yes, 100,000 for the single family, or the single bedroom units.
What's your fixed cost?
For the infrastructure?
For the development infrastructure?
We're right at, I have to pull the numbers for you.
I don't- Roughly. I
2
mean,
million, no,
what's it per
1.5
unit?
million.
What's it per unit? I'm making a point, not for you or against you. What is it? Is it $100,000 unit? Is it $80,000 unit?
It's about that, yeah.
So there's somebody that's doing it as cheaply as they can, and it's $250,000, and that is not affordable for the people unless they're probably making somewhere in that $90,000, and that's the point I'm getting to. We're scratching the surface of something that we really would like to deal with, and we're not prepared to deal with it in the manner it's dealing with it. So. Anyway, that's not about you. That's about conversations we have up here. I'm sorry.
Understood. Yeah, it's a broad and complex issue.
It's
dealing
very
with all
broad
of
and
it.
very complex.
Yes.
Stay tuned, it ain't going away.
Yeah.
Not going away.
No, it's not getting better, is it, on its own? So, yeah, with all of these different grants and opportunities, we're glad to apply on behalf of the county, and we can.
Absolutely.
And we just need people to do that. We do have 2 grant writers here in our audience who work for us volunteer-wise, so, it's amazing that we get.
Can I just clarify? It's a nuance, but I want to be clear about it. You're happy to apply on behalf of the county. You may have to apply on behalf of the county, but the Housing Foundation actually owns these.
On behalf of
Is that
the
right?
needs of the residents.
I
I'm
understand.
sorry, you're right.
Well, it's a nuance, but I want to be clear because I'm not picking on you, but it's really, we're helping the residents, but we're getting and accessing loans, but your agency actually owns these. This is not county-owned housing.
Correct.
No.
Yeah, well, I just want to be, it's a nuance, but it's want to be clear, that's all.
You are accurate in saying that, yes. Let me make sure I didn't skip any. Well, we recently accessed $2.1 million in Spark funds. These are mortgage reservations.
What's that mean?
So we can go through Virginia Housing, and these are mortgage reservations. So when somebody applies for a mortgage, so long as they don't exceed 100% AMI, area median income, they can apply, access these funds, and get a reduced interest rate, and it reduces it by 1% of the going rate. So it helps them to afford a house that they might not be able to afford
So-
because they pay less interest.
That doesn't have anything to do with the development, right?
That does not.
That's just like
That-
a.
this is for
that's just like
first-time home buyers.
That's a first-time home buyer, like funding service that y'all are helping with, and it helps them to buy down their interest rate 1%.
Correct.
Up to $2.1 million in loans. Is that a
Correct.
federal program?
It's administered by Virginia Housing.
Is it a federal program?
It might be.
Okay, I'm just wondering how long it's going to be around, that's all.
Yeah, it might be going tomorrow evening.
Yeah.
It might be already gone.
Miss Chair,
Yes, sir.
Kim, the 220,000 Thomas Jefferson Planning District, is that a large amount for you to get from them? Doesn't that money rotate? from
That is
the
that
seven
is an
jurisdictions?
unusual one. So Charlottesville Redevelopment Authority could not use $660,000 that was allotted to them. So they asked us to bid on it, and they divided it between Greater Charlottesville Habitat, Nelson County Community Development Foundation, and ours.
Okay. Isn't there some money?
Yes, at the bottom,
That they get?
home
that-
funds. If
Okay,
you see the
yes.
third one from the bottom, it's between 85 and 92,000.
And
a
that
year.
rotates the different people that belong, different counties and city of Charlottesville.
Each of the counties gets that same cut each year. It rotates the CHODO recipient every 5 years.
Each of the counties get it, or you're getting it on behalf of the county?
We receive it directly, but you designate who receives it.
Okay, so we're designating it. And what's that money, HUM is not for home, it's obviously an acronym, I guess.
Right.
What's that for? What's it stand for?
It's a great question. I can't recall. off the
Okay, all
top of
right,
my
what do you use the money for?
head. For building houses, yeah, so.
For building houses or repairing houses? Because you're not going to build one for $92,000.
Right, so, yeah, it is part of what the new construction project will use some of these funds.
So this will go into the $4.5 million development?
Yes, and
Okay.
we're using it significantly for the infrastructure right now.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it's just,
So I have a
it's
question.
coming from everywhere.
So the area average income, medium income, you said 92,000.
No,
right?
that's 120%.
No, that's 100% for a family of four, so
Right.
it depends on how many people. I think it's
So,
93,000, like 700, 400, something like that.
That's the total, or is it 100? So that
That's
93.
100% area median income.
So
for a
up
family
to
of four.
120%. Let's just use 92 because that's what I just did my math.
Okay, that's fine. It's close enough.
So that means if you make no more than $110,400, basically you qualify for some type of assistance or fall into an affordable housing category?
No, so this is an unusual, let me go back over to that. So what the governor was trying to do was stop limiting it so much, not having as many restrictions on how the funds need to be utilized and get workforce housing built in different communities. So they just didn't want us to cap it and prevent someone from moving into or living in the county who is working here because they're at 112% AMI and they need a place to live in order to work here. So this is not.
So they can do 120%, and this is nothing negative towards you. This just kind of blows my mind that you can qualify for workforce housing, some type of assistance, fall under a grant, but that number's 110,000. I mean, this just goes to show
No,
you.
I think
you're wrong.
You're misunderstanding a little bit.
Yeah.
This is what we have to at least abide by when we provide the rental housing. We cannot go over 120%.
And this is for rental housing.
Rental
Yes,
housing.
rental housing.
Okay, so let's just use 92,000.
Well, 92,000 is 120%, is it? Is that not?
No, that's 100.
100%.
That's
And that's for a
100%.
family of four.
That's 100%, okay.
Yes.
So it's roughly 20% on top of that would bring you back to about 100. I mean, my point I'm trying to make is you can qualify for housing, and Mr. Barnes talks about affordable housing all the time, and it's a huge issue, not just here, everywhere. There is no affordable housing in Louisa County. You can make $110,400 and qualify for rental assistance because of how expensive it is for housing in the area. I mean, that's the point I'm just trying to make here is $110,000 used to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's not.
And it's not exactly rental assistance. You can qualify to live in our units. And what we do is we charge people based on their income, so we would charge them 30%.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, and again,
Yes.
it's just kind of blowing my mind that
Yeah.
that the number
Yep.
would be 110,000. I mean, I thought the number would be 60,000.
Right. And that for a single person, I'd have to look it up. You know, it changes every year, and it's probably around 60,000 for one person to be at 100%.
So this is for a family of
Yeah.
four, you said,
Yes.
or a family of four.
It's a double income
Correct.
family.
So if we had somebody take, a job locally at AWS and they wanted to live in one of our units for a year and they made, $70,000, they might qualify to live in our units. And we would be able to allow them to live in our units.
You would be able to consider them, might be the better way to put it.
That's a great way to put it. Yes. They wouldn't be forced out of our program.
Yeah, you would not have to say, no, I can't
Yeah,
rent to you. You
right.
could consider them anyway.
Right. So it's trying to broaden the net for workforce housing a bit is the intention. And I know you're well aware of Governor Youngkin's mission to increase workforce housing to allow for industry to move into different areas.
Which I support. I mean, just that number, though.
It's
such
staggering.
it's kind of mind-blowing. to
Yes,
see
and
that
some of the
number.
rural areas, they're saying that you can go up to 150%. But I think that's because some of the rural areas, like ours, is lower than Charlottesville, right? So there's a huge variety of AMIs.
Yeah, some of the rural
depending-
counties, the number's not
Right.
$92,000.
So they're trying to make it less restrictive.
I get it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
You're the last person today, I think. So, star is always last. Quick question. That $1.26 million, is that come from what the governor was saying at the conference about you got to have a affordable housing plan and you would get this money?
So we need to apply for it. It was that $15 million a year that the governor was releasing for workforce housing. That's part of this program.
And we, localities have to have a plan in place.
We will have to get substantiation that there are new jobs here that require workforce housing.
All right, now the second thing, the money that you requested, okay, what do we get for that? What's the purpose of the extra?
Her presentation has all of that in there. I
No,
think-
no.
Well,
Work with me.
We got about 3 minutes.
I know. All right. The question I'm asking is, if we got brevity is a problem, the question I'm asking you, can you do that project, the affordable housing project, without that funding?
Right.
So, the money that Congresswoman Spanbacher got for Louisa County, what would happen to that money?
Well, we will utilize that for infrastructure, and it will just take longer. We'll have to find additional funding sources.
All right.
So, and this is not all, so $40,000 per unit is a grant. We will have a $900,000 mortgage on those 9 units. So it's not all grant money. It is partially loan. It'll be 3%, I believe, will be the loan interest.
This is 4 right there.
Oh, thank you.
All right. So without,
I have to refer to my notes all the
Maybe
time.
take that $2.1 million, that's
No.
1% reduction. I don't know.
If I don't, the numbers are always moving.
so my answer is, without this funding, you couldn't do the project.
We are looking at, the problem for us is having to braid all these different funding sources and having the manpower to apply.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I would propose, and I want to be very careful here, because what I don't want to do is, if we did approve some extra money for you for this project, that's a gift that keeps on giving a lot of times at the government level here. I would propose that if you have some needs for this project, that they're a cost of the project. And they should be included in the capital cost of that project. If you have to hire somebody, and that's $60,000 a year, or whatever the number is, then if it's an 18-month project, then you have $90,000 more for the cost of your project, and that's capturing the cost of the project. And what we've been funding over the years is been your operations. That's what we've been funding. So what you're asking for is you're asking for an employee, I think, or part of an employee or something. I don't know exactly what you're asking for, but something similar to that. And you're asking for it because you have this project, but the project's going to go away, and then that's a capital part of the project. You need to figure out how to finance that in part of the project. I mean, that's a project cost. If I'm doing a project for Mr. Tingler sitting here on the front row, and Mr. Tingler has a $2 million project, and I'm going to spend $100,000, or Mr. Martin knows this, and I'm going to spend $100,000 running that project for him, then that's a cost directly to the project.
Well, Mr. Williams, would you agree that, now, I've been around here too long, I guess, but now I remember when the Housing Foundation didn't pay taxes on real estate taxes.
Yeah, they do.
And that's now a cost that they do now. They used to, when Howard was around, they didn't pay that. So that's a cost that has now been incurred that we never fixed.
And there's additional cost too that she has on this slide of what was not paid when Howard was around, and now they are having to pay many more additional. If we could have her come back to finish her presentation, or
I would think yes, it'd be appropriate. So,
Yeah, I gave it, and it's our fault that we ran over, but
mainly yours.
mainly mine. I'm the chairman, so. Would you mind, so you're the last outside agency, right? So we'll give you an hour at the next board meeting.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to take a full hour.
I would too.
Because,
Sounds like fun.
And a sharp stick in the eye, one of the two.
yeah, I mean, nothing says more fun than standing before the board, right? No, and you know, you and I know each other very well. I mean, the work you do is important. It's an issue. I just want to make sure that the money that we give you, which is taxpayer money, it's always taxpayer money. It's not government money, it's taxpayer money, is addressing the issues that we're all trying to jointly address. I mean, again, I have an issue sometimes with funding staff versus projects, right? And you know, but those are all things we can
Right.
talk about.
No, and this is what I have this fun slide for. So, in
oh, good
order
Lord, we need to give you 2 hours if you're going to go through that
Right, we
slide.
can go through
You're going
it
to have
all.
to figure out how to do it in one.
Yeah.
very
so-
solid
This is our
presentation.
main funding source. This is what's required for every HPG project, even if it's $1,000. This is the process. The process for SWAP, which is the septic and well assistance, is 3 pages of this.
I
And it
understand.
was wrong when they sent it to us.
But you're willing to come back at the next meeting for now? Because we do have a pretty full closed session agenda.
Okay. Yep. In order to
17
administer
minutes
this is our problem, is having the staff in order to get the funding for the projects to our residents.
All right. Kim, thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next meeting. I don't know the date, but.
It's the 3rd, and right now I have it scheduled for 4. Should I make it 3:30 so we have enough time in
What's
case you want
going
to
on
go?
at 4?
Our next work session,
What do we
we
have
doing?
on the agenda is what he's asking.
just the normal budget process to continue through.
Why don't we do it at 3:30? That way.
And that way we
the
can
board's
have
not
Kim
rushed
and
she's
then-
not rushed.
Yeah.
She go first?
Yeah, and you'll go
Yeah,
first.
yeah, she'll go first.
Okay.
And then if we want to,
Because the board
work
does,
session anyway at 4 o'clock for
the board
other
does
stuff.
take it seriously, so, and we want
Absolutely.
to make the right decision.
And we're here to work with you. We're here to, we're here for the residents of Louisa County.
Yeah.
This is what we do.
No, you have
So-
a good relationship
Yeah,
with this board.
we want to
so.
work with you on this, and I want there to be transparency. I feel like when I came into this organization, I went through it and said, what's not efficient and what is? What do we need to do to improve the efficiency of this organization? And I have a whole slide of things.
Well, speaking of efficiency, I got to go.
Okay.
Mr. Barlow. Thank you.
I move that we convene in closed session pursuant to the following subsections of Virginia Code, Section 2.2, 3711. 1, in accordance with Section 2.2, 3711 11A1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of public body. And number 2, in accordance with subsection 2.23711A5, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry in the Mountain Road District where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community.
Been properly moved and seconded, we go into closed session. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're in closed session.
So fast at this.